Here we are. Sunday, December 17th, 2023. I'm Larissa. This is my video diary. It is raining. It's coming down hard. It just started. Oh, I hurt so bad. Middle of the night. I was just hurting. Just hurting. Yeah. I was. Yeah. Yeah. So yesterday, first of all, congratulations to the Warriors on winning. Congratulations. I know you guys needed that, right? Oh my gosh. Very happy for all of you. And that Brandon Pajemski, oh my goodness. Look at you, mister. Look at you. You know who I forgot to mention a while back was Jonathan Kaminga, and he had all those kids. Got all those kids together and gave them a nice day. That was nice. I'm sorry I didn't say something nice about that, Jonathan. I'm proud of you. I am. Good for you, buddy. Good for you. And your new braids look nice. Yeah. And Andrew's haircut looks nice. Yeah, it does. Yeah. And it was real nice that Steph gave all those kids books and book bags. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, especially in Oakland schools, geez. When I was volunteering at McClymonds, it was unreal. Nothing in the classrooms. I was volunteering in the art class. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There was like nothing supply-wise in those classrooms. Nothing. God. Crazy. Yeah, and the number of kids without backpacks. Insane. Yeah. Oh, my experience at McClymonds. Oh my God. How long did I volunteer there? I volunteered there for 6 months, something like that. Yeah. That program, I quit. Not because I didn't want to volunteer with the kids, but because I was really kind of like, I didn't want to volunteer for that program. I didn't like what I was volunteering for anymore. You know, on MAG, the kids were designing gates. Metal Arts Guild of San Francisco. The kids were designing gates for inmates at San Quentin to make for the prison. It was a strange thing all the way around. I'm like, okay. Anyway, liked working with the kids. It was hard. Like working with those kids at McClymonds and working with the kids at Los Gilicos were both hard. Hey.
Hey.
Do you remember when I volunteered at McClymonds with Mag?
Yeah. I do.
It was me and Kate Short.
I can't remember what the...
It was in the art. It was in the art class there, and they were designing gates for the inmates at San Quentin to make. Brody,
don't you dare.
Brody's having a little dominance issues here. You can't let him do that. I mean, you have to
push him off.
You push him off the bed. He has to understand that this is your bed, that you let him up here.
Yeah, Brody.
Mister. Yes. Yeah, that was a really disturbing project. Yeah.
Oh.
It's emotionally it's really really emotionally draining to do that work and day in and day out. And the teachers that work in those schools full time and in the detention center, the people that work in the detention center full time, I don't know how they do it. I really, really, really don't know how they do it. I was there one day a week, right? One day a week. And that was both instances I wasn't getting paid. One instance I was paying to do it, right? Like, I suppose if you're being paid and you have a group of people around you where, it's common shared experience, right? That that probably helps. But still, the heaviness of the reality of those kids' lives and what they have been through. It was just, I'll never forget, I'll never forget a lot of things, but in particular, there was one day, one of the young women that I was working with at Las Gilligas was talking about aging out of the juvenile detention center. They were talking about getting ready to celebrate her 18th birthday. And she was, they were all violent offenders, but she was in for murder. And was it second degree murder? It was second degree murder is what it was. She killed a girl by herself. Um, she was talking about aging out and moving. What's the women's prison? I want to say it's Santa Rita, but it's not Santa Rita. I want to say it's Santa Rita just because Santa Rita is a woman's name, but what the hell's the name of the women's prison? I can't remember right now. She was talking about which one she was going to, and that her hearing that she had to talk about it, had considered sending her out of state, and that they were letting her stay in state. Um, that there were three things that were being discussed. That there had been a possibility that she was going to be released on house arrest um, to her grandfather, who was a tribal leader, um, and that she had to go to regular court, and that there had been tribal court hearings as well, and that she hadn't been released to her grandfather because tribal court hearings said no. Right? That was the outcome of the tribal court meeting, was that they said they didn't want her released. And so she was going she was they weren't going to send her out of state when the like she was talking about this so nonchalantly, like talking about like the way I talk about, oh, I'm going to go to the grocery store and get this, that, and the other thing and make dinner. It was so heavy to hold, right? And then she was talking about, um, part of the reason they kept her in state was so that her grandfather could bring her baby to see her because she had given birth in prison. When she murdered this woman, she had been pregnant. Yeah. Like, there were so many layers to this young woman's life. Now, I wasn't allowed to ask questions, right? That was one of the conditions of my being allowed to work and run my program, was that I was not allowed to ask questions, and I didn't. I mean, I could ask questions like, "How are you today?" and "What are you doing? What are you learning in your other school classes?" Like stuff like that. I was allowed to ask, but I wasn't allowed to ask any personal questions. Right? It was only about. I was only allowed to listen to what they said. So like I didn't know anything about. She never talked about why she killed this girl. Um, she beat her to death. So like that takes a lot. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to beat someone to death. She reminded me of this girl that I went to middle school with. And physically, I'm talking about her physical appearance. She reminded me of a girl I went to middle school with in out by Philly. She did. And that girl had been a little bit of a bruiser. Um, she had, like that was a girl who threatened to beat me up a number of times in school. Um, who apologized to me as an adult via Facebook. Um, she never did actually beat me up, but she and a bunch of girls, they told me when I used to go roller skating, she told me that they were gonna beat me up outside of the rink. And thank God my mother arrived, was there, like was pulled up as we were going outside, as we were leaving. I just jumped in the car and left. Well, I hit a girl because she grabbed me and they were gonna beat the crap out of me. I hit her and then um oh God, that was that there were like 10 of them. There were like 10 of them. They were gonna beat me up. They were gonna beat me up because a boy asked me to skate and they wanted him to skate with another girl. So they were gonna beat me up because he asked me to skate. Slow skate with him. That's what it was about. Anyway, yeah. How long was I, how long did I work at? How long did I do that program at Las Gilligas? It was like 9 months long. It's like a 9 month long program. So anything anybody can do to keep kids from following those kinds of paths and to save them from even if it's for just a day or two, save them from violent situations. Because I'll tell you, man, there was always something. Every time I went into McClymonds, there was always something. Always something. A lot of gun violence. Not in the school. Gang gun violence, right? Gang gun violence. That's all I ever heard of. Like, none of the kids that talked about guns and stuff and gun violence, none of them weren't gang affiliated. Yeah, it was all gang related. So it's, when people talk about gun violence, they really, really, really need to talk about gang violence because it is a rare, rare thing when the gun violence is non-gang affiliated. It's rare. And the gang violence has a long, long history. Yeah. One girl, when I was working with the girls at Los Galicos, there's one girl who was in for cocaine and stealing, and she's there was an aggravated assault while she was committing a robbery so she could buy coke. She was like 16 years old. 15 years old. 15. 15, because she was talking about how she got locked up just before she was supposed to have her quinceañera. Yeah. And while I was working with her, she got released, right? Um, and like 2 weeks later, she was back. 2 weeks later, she was back. I was like, wow. I have no idea what she did to get back in. And she wasn't talking about it. So, I have no idea. I have no idea. Crazy. Crazy. It's just weird because, like, I've only ever seen cocaine once in my life, like, firsthand, seen it. I've been around people who've had it and been on it, right? But I've only actually physically seen it with my eyeballs one time. Little girl taking cocaine every day. I mean, cocaine's not cheap, right? It's like it's a pretty like it's a pretty bougie drug to be on, huh? Pretty bougie drug to be hooked on. Hey, mister. Hey, how are you? You know what? What's going on with you? He's been he's been exhibiting dominance behaviors with Omar, and it's bad enough when he does it to me. So I don't know what the anxiety is. I think Sassy's on an antibiotic right now, and so she appears to be getting extra attention. It might have something to do with that because the behavior started with that. Yeah, yeah. So Sassy's got a UTI. anyway, anyway, glad the Warriors won. And it's nice when you do things with the kids like that. And I fully acknowledge how hard it is working with certain demographics of youth. Working with youth across the board is hard because whenever you work with any child that's struggling with anything, it's you carry that with them. I mean, there's no way. I don't know. There was no way for me when I was working in the schools to not um, love every child you work with, right? Every single one, every single one. I don't I didn't I couldn't understand. There were teachers that would talk about having favorites or whatever, and I worked with a lot of kids. I worked in a lot of classrooms. Um, and yeah, there were some kids that were way more difficult than others. I had a kid who in one of my recreation classes that I taught that was on he had some sort he was probably autistic. He was probably severely autistic, and this was oh gosh, this was like 18 years 19, 19 20 22 years ago. 22 years ago when I was teaching. It was in one of the pottery classes that I was teaching. Yeah, the 6 to 9 year olds, 6 to 8 year olds, and he was 8, and I'm guessing they didn't know he was seeing a doctor. He wasn't currently enrolled in school. He was being homeschooled. A lot of the kids that I worked with were homeschooled for various reasons in those classes. Um, and the pottery class was their art credit, right? Because you still have to follow curriculum standards when you homeschool in California. And anyway, he would just make a noise like he sounded like a siren. He would just sit and just like make this noise, and then he would just talk, like, you know and then he would sit and just make this noise, and it was just the behavior. And his father was just like, when they brought him in, they explained to me, they said, he gave me his phone number. He's like, if things get too bad, you can call me and I'll come get him, kind of thing. And I was just like, whoa. I worked really hard with him to keep him in the class because I could get him to focus sometimes, but you know struggles, and they tried all kinds of different medications on him. And one time they brought him in and he just like sat and stared at the table, like for the hour and a half. It's just like, oh my god. But even then, I loved him, and he was challenging to work with, but I felt bad for him. You know, you have kids that act like that or have those issues. I don't understand teachers not liking them. I don't understand teachers not liking kids. Period. Um, Even the naughty ones, like the little boy when I was teaching preschool. I taught preschool. Oh my God, taught preschool for a year. Oh gosh, when I say a year, I don't mean 12 months. For like a school year, right? It was a preschool program. I taught that. So it was like for 6 months, whatever it is, whatever a school year is. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, he was there again. It was probably ADD or something like that. I mean, I don't think it's as prevalent as what it gets diagnosed, but there are some kids, like this kid was hyperactive. He had his hands in everything, all the time. And that teacher's aide smacked him. And it's, that wasn't okay. It wasn't okay. Number one, it wasn't an effective way of dealing with him because he just kept going, right? And it wasn't appropriate to do, right? It wasn't appropriate to hit him. Um, so I had to tell the mother. I told the mother when she came to pick him up. I said, look, I said, I'm very sorry. He might mention it to you. A teacher's aide smacked him today. And she's like, why? She's like, what'd he do? And I'm like, oh, okay, so you smack him at home too, which I kind of figured when by his reaction, his response, it was like he was just totally not fazed by this woman hitting him. I said, I'm very sorry. That is not what we're supposed to do. And I will be talking to our supervisor about this behavior. I mean, the mom was just like, what did you do? Blah, 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 to the kid. And the kid, we were doing we were working on an art project. We were doing art project. I was demonstrating and I was showing the kids what all of the materials were. And so I had all the materials laid out on the table that we were going to use. And I was talking about what they were. And when I would talk about what they were. And then everybody got to pick it up and touch it and look at it and then put it back down. And then I showed them how it worked. And, then I went on to the next thing and I'd tell them what it was, and then they get to pick it up and look at it and put it down. Well, he just wanted to grab at everything. And he'd been kind of riled up out on the playground when we'd been out on the playground. And when we came back in and we had snack and we had a kid vomit all over the table because kids that age, they puke and pee all the time, right? So he was like a little bit wound up because all of that excitement, oh, a kid threw up, wah, he was all wound, then he was all wound up, and she just yelled at him and smacked him, and I was just like, ooh. But so I don't understand. I love that little kid too. All of them. All of them. I don't understand teachers not loving their kids. I don't understand teachers not liking their kids. Right? I worked with a lot of kids. A lot of kids. Anyway. A guy the other day came in the gallery, and yeah, it was yesterday. He bought his calendar, and we were talking. And we were talking about stuff, and he's like, "Oh, you know a lot of history." And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Where'd you learn history?" I said, "In art school." He's like, "Art school?" Like he was like, psh, never occurred to him that. I'm like, yeah, but I do. I know a lot of history. I know a lot of history in depth because of art history. Anyway, he's like, "Wouldn't it be fun to teach high school?" I'm like, "Nope." It wouldn't be. He's like, what? How? I thought it'd be. I'm like, no, it's not fun and it's not worth it. And I'm like, I did that. He's like, you taught history in high school? I said, no, I taught art. It's not worth it. Oh, not because the kids aren't worth it, but just because it's like so poorly paid and it takes so much out of you. It takes so much out of you, right? And then you don't get to put anything into your life, right? Like when I'm talking about, like, when I was teaching, I didn't make any art. All I did was demonstrations, technique demonstrations. I didn't make any art while I was teaching. And that like sucked my soul. It did. It did. Now when I was volunteering at McClymonds, take it back. When I was volunteering at McClymonds one day a week, I was making art. I was making art then. But that wasn't McClymonds, that wasn't teaching. At McClymonds, that wasn't teaching. It really wasn't. That was babysitting. That was like therapy. Seriously, because when those kids would come in and just like dump on me, but that people do. People always have dumped on me. Tell me the horrible things going on in their lives. I don't know. I don't know what it is when I sit down next to somebody and say, "Hi, how are you today?" They actually tell me. Go figure. Whatever. Yeah. hmm So, necklace that I was working on Friday. Ugh, the one that's giving me so much trouble. So I cut it yesterday morning. I cut it all off. I started to restring it on a new piece of silk, and that piece of silk snapped. So what the issue is, I have one of the smoky quartz beads is not drilled cleanly through the center, and there's a jagged little edge inside of it, and it is slicing the silk. So I have a bead reamer. I have a bead reamer. So next time I sit down to work on that piece, I'm gonna ream all of the smoky quartz beads first. Make sure that they're all smooth inside before I waste another piece of silk. Yeah. So I couldn't stand it. I bundled that piece all up and pushed it off to the side, and I started the next piece, and I got that all put together. But there's a couple things I'm going to change on it. So it's really really long, and it's multi-stranded, and I have the strands all kind of bundled together, and then there's a single link in the back. And I had done that for ergonomics because when you're wearing a multi-stranded necklace, it can be a bit much to have the multi-strand come together at the back of the neck um, to hook. It's very heavy. It's very heavy and it's long. So right now the piece lays like this long, right? Multi-strands lays this long. And if I take that link off on the back, it'll lay more like this, right? Which will still be long. Um, and so I decided I didn't take it apart yesterday and change that then. I want to go back and look at it with fresh eyes next time I go into the gallery and make that decision at that point. Part of the reason I made it like that is because in the painting, so this one's for the painting that is the portrait of the martyrdom of Saint Larissa, the individual portrait. Um, she has the figure has a crucifix that's hanging on the body as it's being burned, and the skin's all burnt away, and it's all like sizzling red flesh and bone. So the piece is like a lot of red, and um, lays like here because that's all exposed, and there's all these little pieces. I used the bird bone. I had little bird bone hishi and um, bone rondelles, and so I used those as spacers between um, other red stones, agates and corals. It's dyed coral. It's not, well, yeah. The rounds might be natural, but the discs that I use, the coral discs are dyed. So yeah, and then I used the rest of the onyx skulls. So the piece um, is visually heavy. It's visually heavy both in composition and then also in detail and then also in physical weight. Like when you put it on, you can really, really feel it. So I made the earrings. I echoed the longness of the necklace in the earrings, but I think I need to change that too because you can't wear the earrings with the necklace. When you put on the earrings, they lay on the necklace and it's kind of distracting. Like it just looks jumbled. It doesn't look layered. It looks jumbled. And so my intention was for it to be layered, but it's not. It's jumbled. So I'm gonna pull the earrings up a little bit shorter. Yeah, yeah. But the piece is nice. It is. It's really nice. It's really nice. Hmm. Yeah. I remember when I was working at McClymonds, so it's when I was doing the bridal shows, when I was doing that work at McClymonds. Oh, and I was the one day I was going in to do the volunteering, and then I was driving to have my work photographed by Deezer. He's passed away now. If I had known when he passed away, I would have gone to his funeral. I was mostly because I was just curious to meet his daughters. Um, Guy that photographed my jewelry for me in San Jose, Daryl Zahner. He was an interesting person. Oh, probably should have been in prison, but based on the things he told me he did, never got caught for. He drove a truck, drove a big rig most of his life. He made most of his money driving a big rig and being a photographer for Playboy. Oh my God, the stuff he told me. Stuff he told me. And his wife was a kindergarten teacher and she died of cancer. Anyway, I was going there next. So I had all of this jewelry that I had made, thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. And I took it in to show these kids. It was so nerve-wracking, letting these kids touch all this jewelry, making sure everything made it back. You know, it did. But it was a little, I had to suspend my trust, you know. It was an act of trust, but I didn't want to leave it in the car. No, there was no way in hell I was going to leave all that jewelry in the car. So I kind of had to bring it into the classroom, and the kids were like, "What's in the bag?" And Deb Lozier's like, "Oh, Larissa, show them your work." I'm like, "Oh my God, I hadn't intended to, but I did, but I did." Yeah, and I went and had it photographed, and I don't have any of those photographs. He had them on a server. He had his own server. And anytime I needed them, I had access to them because I had access to his server. I had a password and everything. I could go log onto the site and get whatever. He said, and he gave me discs, but this, CDs, but those CDs, they're not, and at the time I wasn't smart. I didn't just save everything, and even if I had, I don't have those laptops or anything anymore anyway. I all I had to do was go to his website and I could download them, log in and download them anytime I needed them. It was really nice. He was really good. He was really good. His photos were really, really good, and he was really, really affordable. Thing was, is you had to tolerate him. So by the time I met him, he was enormously obese, and he was a shut-in. He didn't leave the house anymore, um, for anything. His wife did all the shopping and everything. He was a shut-in. And so he wasn't afraid of people. He just didn't leave the house. And I don't know, there could have been a lot of reasons for that. So about once every 6 months, I'd get a phone call from him, and he would just talk for like 3 hours. And you had to tolerate that. And then you had to tolerate his conversation when you were there. And some of the stuff it was like, I don't know if it was like a confessional for him, but I mean, stuff that he told me was really, really awful. And it was confessions. It was like confessions of things he had done. Now, it was never anything like, he never told me about murdering anybody or anything like that. No. But just like shitty things he had done to people. A lot of women. And I always thought it was really interesting because his one daughter, he had two daughters that were older than me. Like, I think one was like 8 and one was like 10 years older than me. One of them was an FBI agent. I'm like, does your daughter know you did all this shit? I'm like, surely the FBI knows. I don't know. I don't know. It was strange. It was strange. But yeah. Oh, I had cramps so bad last night. Oh my God. So today, I'm going to make my Christmas cookies today. Make my Christmas cookies and freeze them so that they're ready for Christmas. So they don't get all eaten before Christmas. And then I also, I don't know, I have some I told Omar I have pineapple down there. I was thinking I was going to do some pineapple upside down muffins. Um, and then I need to go get a couple things at the grocery store. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I need to do today and probably some tomorrow. Anyway, still got this bruise on my shoulder. I don't know what that is. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. All I know is that like it hurt down on my shoulder, down inside of my shoulder, and then this tiny little bruise showed up. So I don't know if there was something in my arm that like I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even know. Maybe I have cancer. I'm gonna die. Who knows? Who knows?